A dog and its owner stumbled over slick rocks, their breaths ragged, clothes drenched, eyes wide with fear. Thunder cracked like the earth itself was breaking apart. In the swirling fog, the dog's instincts sharpened, its loyalty and courage ignited. They were separated, and survival now depended on one question. Could the dog lead its lost owner safely through the treacherous peaks before darkness fell? The morning sun spilled over the jagged peaks, painting the mountain cliffs in shades of gold and orange. A cool wind rustled the pines, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and damp earth. High on a narrow trail, a dog trotted ahead of its owner, ears flicking at every rustle of leaves and distant bird call. Its fur glimmered in the sunlight, a mix of chestnut and white, sturdy yet sleek. The man whistled softly, a sound the dog had known since puppyhood, and it glanced back, tail wagging. Together, they had hiked countless trails, each step a rhythm of shared trust and quiet companionship. But mountains were unpredictable. By mid-morning, dark clouds rolled over the peaks faster than anyone expected. The wind stiffened, scattering loose leaves and sending small stones skittering across the trail. The dog's ears twitched as it noticed the first drops of rain, larger than normal, soaking the dirt into slick mud. Its owner, a man in his 30s with worn hiking boots and a green jacket, muttered under his breath, "Storm's coming fast, better find shelter." They rounded a bend where the trail narrowed, cliffs rising sharply on one side and plunging into a forested ravine on the other. A sudden gust of wind tore through the trail, and the dog lost its footing, sliding a few feet toward the edge. The man lunged forward, grabbing the dog's collar just in time. He held it close, panting. "Easy, easy, boy. We'll be safe." But safety was a promise the mountains did not always keep. A crack of thunder split the sky, echoing between the peaks like rolling cannon fire. The dog's hackles rose. The man's grip tightened. Then a lightning strike hit a nearby tree, sending it crashing down toward the trail. Rocks tumbled and the ground shuddered. In the chaos, the man stumbled backward, losing his balance, and the dog bolted instinctively. The dog ran without thinking, bounding over roots and rocks, leaping past the fallen tree, adrenaline surging. Behind it, the man shouted its name, his voice swallowed by the storm. Rain poured down, blurring the edges of the trail, soaking fur and jacket alike. Visibility dropped to a few feet. When the dog finally stopped, panting and shivering, the man was nowhere in sight. The sound of rushing water from a distant stream and the howl of the wind filled the mountains. For the first time in its life, the dog was utterly alone. Its keen nose and ears worked overtime, searching for any scent, any sound of the man it loved. Nothing. Only the wind and the rain. The dog's instincts screamed, "Survive." Its paws sank into mud, cold and slippery, yet it pressed forward along a faint path it barely recognized. Hours passed. The rain turned the trail into a series of rivulets, carving channels through the soil. The dog crossed streams that gushed angrily over stones, jumped over fallen logs, and ducked under branches that clawed at its fur. Hunger gnawed at its belly, but the more pressing need was warmth and shelter. Each step was a test of balance, courage, and wits. As evening approached, gray shadows lengthened, turning the forest into a maze of ghostly shapes. The dog found a shallow cave beneath a rock overhang and squeezed inside. The wind rattled the entrance, sending small pebbles tumbling. Inside, the dog curled tightly, shivering. Its fur was soaked, matted with mud and pine needles. But it did not sleep. Alertness kept it alive. Every sound, drip of water, rustle of leaves, distant owl hoot, was analyzed. Night fell. The storm subsided, leaving only a steady drizzle. The dog ventured out cautiously, nose low to the ground, sniffing for anything familiar. The scent of its owner lingered faintly in the air, carried by the rain, and the dog followed it relentlessly, navigating slippery rocks and brambles. Every small creek became a potential obstacle, every shadow a possible threat. A distant howl reached the dog's ears. Not a wolf, but a stray fox perhaps, claiming territory. The dog's hackles rose. It circled, teeth bared slightly, then remembered the lessons of loyalty and caution its owner had taught it. The fox retreated into the darkness. Hours passed, the dog's paws bruised and tired. Hunger pressed harder now. It scavenged along the path, handfuls of fallen berries, an occasional small rodent it caught with precision. Each meal was meager, but it kept the dog moving. Its mind never strayed from one thought: find its owner, survive, never give up. Just as exhaustion threatened to slow its pace, the dog stumbled onto an abandoned campsite. Broken tents and empty cans littered the clearing. The dog sniffed every corner, searching for a human scent. Nothing alive remained, only the memory of previous hikers. But then, faint tracks in the mud caught its attention. Small footprints, not large like the man's, but fresh. The dog followed them carefully, ears pricked, every muscle tense. Night deepened. The clouds cleared slightly, revealing slivers of moonlight that guided the dog. The air grew colder, and a thin frost began to form on the leaves. The dog's paws numbed, yet it pressed onward. Somewhere out there, it knew its owner was lost, waiting, vulnerable. And somewhere out there, survival meant following instincts sharper than fear. By the time the first hints of dawn crept over the peaks, the dog had crossed a narrow ridge, bypassed a fallen boulder, and found a small plateau overlooking a distant valley. Below, mist clung to trees like silver veils. And then, in the distance, the dog spotted something unusual, a faint movement near a stream. A lone human figure, hunched and shivering, clothes muddy, clearly lost. The dog's tail twitched. Its heart raced. This was no stranger. Somehow, instinct told it that this person needed help. Carefully it approached, paws silent on the damp grass. The figure turned, startled, eyes wide with fear. The dog lowered itself slightly, a gesture of peace, letting the human see it was not a threat. The human's voice was hoarse. "Dog? Are you?" The dog barked softly, wagged its tail, and nudged the human gently with its nose. Recognition passed through both of them in a silent moment of understanding. The dog would lead. The human would follow. And together, they would navigate the mountains, survival resting on the loyalty, intelligence, and courage of one small, determined dog. The journey was just beginning. Storms, cliffs, and unseen dangers awaited, but for the first time in hours, the dog and the lost hikers shared something more powerful than fear: hope. The first light of dawn barely touched the jagged peaks, turning the snow-capped tips a faint pink. Below, the dog paused on a ridge, ears twitching, tail stiff. The human it had spotted yesterday, a hiker, exhausted and disoriented, was somewhere down in the mist-filled valley. The dog sniffed the air, catching a faint scent: sweat, cold, and fear. Its instincts flared. This was not just another stranger. This one needed help, and the dog, relentless and sharp-minded, would guide him. The valley below was a maze of fallen trees, jagged rocks, and narrow streams. The human stumbled blindly, every step careful but unsteady. He slipped in mud, cursed under his breath, and pulled himself up again, shivering as the morning chill sank through his wet clothes. Each step carried danger. A misstep could mean a sprained ankle, a fall, or worse. High above him, the dog waited, calculating. It trotted forward a few steps, then stopped, then barked softly, a signal. The hiker froze. For a long moment, he scanned the mist. A flash of movement, brown and white fur weaving between rocks. The hiker's eyes widened. "Dog," he whispered hoarsely, disbelief and hope mingling in his voice. The dog barked again, this time a short, urgent note. It began moving slowly, deliberately, pausing to make sure the hiker could follow. The man, trembling from cold and fatigue, took a hesitant step forward. Then another. He followed the dog, careful to mimic its pace and watch for hidden obstacles. Rocks shifted under his weight. The stream gurgled dangerously, swollen from the previous day's storm. A branch snapped under his foot. The dog barked sharply, spinning around to check, eyes bright and alert. The hiker froze, realizing that the dog wasn't just leading him, it was watching him, guarding him, thinking for both of them. Hours passed. The valley stretched endlessly, a tangle of mossy boulders, fallen trees, and slippery mud. Hunger gnawed at both bodies, dog and human alike, but survival demanded focus. The hiker's legs screamed, but the dog never faltered. Each time the human faltered, the dog nudged him forward, pressing him onward with quiet insistence. Midday brought another trial. A narrow ridge rose sharply, slick with morning rain. The hiker's boots slipped. The dog moved first, testing the footing, finding safe patches of stone. It barked twice, a short, sharp warning. The man exhaled and followed carefully, his eyes locked on the dog's every move. When they reached the top, the valley below stretched endlessly, a blur of trees and mist. Relief washed over them both, but the dog's ears flicked constantly, alert for any new danger. As they moved deeper into the forested slopes, shadows grew longer. The sun filtered through tall pines, painting the ground in jagged strips of light and darkness. Branches clawed at the man's jacket. The dog slipped through effortlessly, weaving, bounding, and circling back to make sure he kept up. Suddenly, a rustle in the undergrowth made the hiker freeze. Something large moved, low to the ground. A wild animal? The dog's fur bristled, a low growl rolling in its throat. The figure stepped closer, but instead of attacking, it emerged, a startled mountain goat, shaking off the undergrowth. The hiker laughed nervously, exhaling in relief, and the dog's tail wagged briefly, a signal that danger had passed. By late afternoon, exhaustion weighed heavily. The hiker's breath came in ragged gasps, every step slower than the last. The dog glanced at him, then glanced toward a steep slope where shadows suggested a small clearing or perhaps a path toward lower ground. The hiker understood instinctively. The dog was guiding him, not randomly wandering. He pushed forward, each step a small victory, each glance at the dog a reminder that he was not alone. The duo reached a shallow stream just as the sky began to darken. The water was icy, rushing fast, but the dog splashed across with ease. It turned, barking, urging the hiker to follow. The man tested each stepping stone, slipped twice, and cursed under his breath, but the dog waited patiently. When he finally reached the far bank, he collapsed on his knees, soaked, shivering, but alive. Night approached quickly. The temperature dropped, and the shadows of the trees merged into a thick darkness. The hiker built a small fire with dry sticks the dog helped him locate, keeping it small enough to avoid smoke attracting predators. The dog curled beside him, ears alert, eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. Trust had been established, silent and deep. During the night, a sudden noise, branches snapping, wind howling through the peaks, sent both to alert. The hiker froze. The dog growled softly, standing at the edge of the firelight. A shadow moved across the slope. A deer, calm and cautious, pausing briefly before disappearing into the darkness. Relief washed over them both, and the hiker finally allowed himself to relax, leaning back against a rock, grateful for his unlikely guide. The next morning, a faint mist hovered over the valley. The dog was already moving, sniffing the air, ears forward, tail held low but steady. The hiker followed without hesitation. Their journey continued, narrow passes, slippery rocks, and sudden drops. Each obstacle tested courage, intelligence, and trust. Every time the hiker faltered, the dog adjusted, circling back, nudging him forward, always calculating, always alert. By midday, they reached a high plateau overlooking a broader valley. The view stretched endlessly, but the dog's eyes caught something, a thin line of smoke in the distance, likely a ranger station or campsite. Excitement flared in the hiker. "That way," he whispered. The dog barked softly, bounding forward, and the man followed, renewed energy carrying him across the rocky terrain. For the first time since the storm, hope glimmered. The dog, lean and determined, led the way, a true underdog hero of the mountains. It had saved the lost hiker through sheer courage, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. And as they approached the distant smoke, both man and dog understood that this journey, terrifying and grueling, was just the beginning of a bond neither would ever forget. The morning mist clung stubbornly to the mountains, shrouding the valley in a ghostly haze. The dog padded forward, paws silent on wet moss and jagged rocks. The hiker followed, muscles stiff from the previous day's strain. Every sound was amplified in the fog: the rush of distant water, the snap of a branch underfoot, the occasional bird call. The mountains were alive, alert, and indifferent. One wrong step could spell disaster. But the dog moved with certainty, senses sharp, guiding the man through the labyrinth of danger. The trail narrowed sharply along a cliff's edge. Below, jagged rocks jutted out like teeth, and a thin layer of fog made the depth seem even more terrifying. The dog stopped, tail low, and barked once, a signal for caution. The hiker's stomach tightened. This is too narrow," he muttered, voice trembling. The dog's eyes met his, steady, unwavering, urging him forward. With careful steps, testing each foothold, the hiker moved along, the dog shadowing him, alert for every loose stone and uneven patch. Halfway along the ridge, a sudden rumble echoed through the mountains. Rocks tumbled from higher cliffs, crashing into the slope below. The hiker froze, panic gripping him. Instinctively, he pressed against the cliff wall. The dog barked sharply, then darted ahead, leaping to a safer section of the trail, pausing to ensure the hiker followed. Heart pounding, the man took a deep breath, mimicking the dog's precise movements, trusting its guidance over his own fear. As the ridge ended, the path sloped into a dense forest. Shadows wrapped around them like living things, branches clawing at clothing and hair. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, pine, and decay. The dog sniffed constantly, ears twitching. A rustle nearby made both freeze. From the undergrowth, a pair of glowing eyes reflected the dim morning light. The dog growled low, tail bristled. Out stepped a mountain bobcat, sleek and silent, eyes locked on the intruders. The hiker's breath caught. "Dog, what do we do?" he whispered. The dog's stance was firm yet calm, a living shield. It circled the hiker, showing confidence, and barked sharply. The bobcat hesitated, assessing the situation, then slowly slinked back into the shadows. Relief washed over the hiker. You saved me again," he murmured, voice hoarse with awe. The dog simply wagged its tail once, ears alert, already scanning ahead. Hours passed. The forest thickened, and the trail became almost unrecognizable. Mud, fallen logs, and hidden ravines made each step treacherous. The hiker's legs trembled with exhaustion. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, and the cold seeped through his wet clothing. The dog paused at the edge of a small clearing, sniffing the ground. It had caught the scent of water, a stream nearby, fresh and safe. The man followed the dog to the stream. He knelt to drink cautiously, splashing cold water on his face. The dog lapped eagerly, muscles tense, watching the surrounding trees. Something in the air shifted. A distant crack, like a breaking branch under immense weight, sent the dog into instant alertness. It barked sharply, circling the man, urging him to move quickly. Instinct took over. They navigated through the forest, moving silently but swiftly, aware that danger might be near. By late afternoon, they emerged onto a rocky slope that overlooked a roaring waterfall. Mist sprayed across their faces, blurring the edges of vision. The hiker froze, awe and fear mingling. We have to get down there?" he asked, voice trembling. The dog barked, a single sharp note, then cautiously leapt onto the first large boulder, testing stability. With a careful, calculated pace, it moved down the jagged slope. The hiker followed, hands gripping rocks, teeth gritted against fear. Halfway down, a sudden landslide of small rocks tumbled dangerously close. The hiker slipped, arms flailing. Instinctively, the dog leapt forward, gripping the man's sleeve gently with its teeth, tugging him back to safer footing. Heart racing, the hiker realized this dog was more than a guide. It was a protector, risking itself to ensure his survival. Adrenaline surged as they scrambled down, each rock a potential threat, each misstep a deadly trap. Night fell quickly. The mountains, now dark and silent, felt alive with unseen dangers. The dog led them to a small cave hidden behind a cascade of ferns, a natural shelter from the cold and rain. The hiker collapsed inside, shivering, wet, and exhausted. The dog curled next to him, body pressed close, providing warmth. Its eyes glinted in the dim light, alert, unyielding, ready to defend at a moment's notice. While the hiker tried to rest, nightmares of falling, losing balance, or being attacked by wild animals threatened sleep. The dog remained vigilant, ears twitching, muscles coiled for action. Every sound of the forest, owl hoots, distant water crashes, rustling leaves, was analyzed and assessed. The man's life depended on this creature, and it had accepted that responsibility without hesitation. The night dragged on slowly, each hour a test of endurance. The wind howled through the valley, rattling rocks and sending gusts through the cave entrance. Rain began again, pounding the forest floor and washing loose soil down the mountain. Yet, through it all, the dog's resolve never faltered. It remained by the hiker's side, a constant presence of courage and loyalty. By the first light of the next morning, the storm had passed. The sun filtered through broken clouds, illuminating a treacherous but navigable path below. The dog rose, shaking off the cold and mud, eyes scanning the terrain. The hiker followed, renewed energy coursing through him at the sight of the dog's confidence. They were not safe yet. The journey continued, but the path ahead seemed less like a trap and more like a road to survival. At the edge of the next ridge, the dog paused, ears flicking toward a distant sound, the faint murmur of voices. It barked softly, urging the hiker to hurry. Hope, fragile but undeniable, sparked in the hiker's chest. Somewhere down there help awaited. But the mountains were merciless. They had survived the night, yet challenges loomed, hidden ravines, slippery paths, and unpredictable weather. The dog, lean and determined, was their only constant, the unsung hero of this perilous journey. As they descended carefully, the hiker glanced at the dog and whispered, voice hoarse but filled with gratitude, I don't know how I'd survive without you." The dog's tail thumped once, ears pricked, eyes forward. No words were needed. Loyalty, courage, and trust had created an unbreakable bond in the heart of the mountains. The journey was far from over, but one truth had already become clear. In a world full of peril, the underdog hero, a single, relentless dog, had the power to save a life. The morning sun pierced the valley fog, casting a pale golden glow over jagged peaks. The dog paused on a rocky outcrop, nostrils flaring as it caught the scent of voices, human voices, steady and urgent. Its ears twitched. This was the sign they had been waiting for. Help was near. The hiker, still weak and shivering, leaned heavily on the dog's side, grateful for its guidance and protection through the treacherous terrain. Below, a search party moved cautiously, radios crackling, voices echoing across the cliffs. The hiker's eyes lit up with hope, but the path to them was perilous, a narrow ledge clinging to the mountainside, slick with rain, where a single misstep could mean a fatal fall. The dog stepped forward, steady and confident, tail held low but firm. The hiker followed, trusting every paw step, every instinct. The ledge twisted sharply around a rocky corner. A sudden gust of wind tore through the mountains, rattling loose stones. The hiker froze, heart hammering, but the dog pressed forward, nudging him gently with its head, encouraging him to trust again. Step by step, careful and deliberate, they edged along the precipice. Every move was life or death. Suddenly, a rock beneath the hiker's boot gave way. He stumbled violently, arms flailing, eyes wide in terror. The dog reacted instantly. With a swift leap, it grabbed the hiker's sleeve in its teeth, anchoring him and preventing a deadly tumble. The hiker's breath came in jagged gasps. You saved me again," he whispered, voice trembling with awe and fear. The dog only barked sharply once, urging him onward. As they neared the search party, voices grew clearer, radios crackling. "We have a visual. Over here," called one of the rescuers. The hiker waved weakly, relief flooding his exhausted body. The dog barked, tail wagging once, then darted forward, leading him carefully down the final stretch of rocks toward safety. The rescuers reached them, eyes wide at the sight of the dog guiding the human. "Is this your dog?" one asked, astonished. The hiker shook his head. "No, I don't think so. He found me, saved me." The dog stood proudly, chest high, eyes glinting with quiet intelligence and loyalty. It had led the lost hiker to safety against impossible odds. Blankets were wrapped around the shivering hiker, water and food offered, but his attention never left the dog. You're incredible," he said, voice thick with emotion. The dog tilted its head, ears flicking, and nudged the hiker gently, as if to say, "We're not done yet. Let's go home." The descent back to the main trail was careful and slow. The hiker leaned on rescuer's shoulders, but the dog ran ahead and circled back constantly, ensuring he remained safe. Even small hazards, a loose branch, a patch of slippery mud, were navigated with precision. Each time, the dog's instinct saved him, a guardian in fur, tireless and unyielding. Hours later, they reached the ranger station. The hiker was exhausted, but safe, thanks to the dog. Rescue personnel praised the man for surviving, but he only had eyes for the dog. He knelt beside it, tears in his eyes. "I owe you my life," he whispered. The dog licked his cheek, tail wagging slowly, ears alert. There were no words, only the understanding that an unbreakable bond had formed between them. The hiker was reunited with his family, who had feared the worst. His gratitude was immense, yet he explained how the dog had guided him, protected him, and saved him from the mountain's deadly grip. Stories of the dog's heroism spread through the small mountain community. Rangers and locals alike marveled at the intelligence, bravery, and loyalty displayed by the scrappy underdog. Days passed, but the hiker, now recovering, couldn't forget the dog. He returned to the mountains, calling its name, following the trails that had led him along. The dog appeared as if from the mist, tail wagging, ears forward, ready to continue their silent partnership. Together, they walked through the familiar valleys and ridges, retracing the paths of their shared struggle. During one evening stroll, the hiker paused at a ridge overlooking the valley where their ordeal had begun. "You led me through hell," he whispered, voice soft, almost reverent. The dog sat beside him, gaze steady, eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. In that moment, both understood the truth. Loyalty, courage, and determination could emerge from the smallest and most underestimated heroes. Weeks turned into months. The hiker trained the dog to assist search and rescue missions. Its intelligence, bravery, and uncanny sense of danger made it invaluable. Together, they saved others lost in the mountains, echoing the miraculous journey that had brought them together. The dog became a symbol, a living reminder that even the underdog, scrappy and overlooked, could change lives and conquer insurmountable challenges. One quiet evening, the hiker sat beside the dog near the waterfall where their ordeal had climaxed. Water roared beneath them, mist spraying their faces. The hiker gently scratched the dog behind its ears. "You didn't just save me," he said softly. "You showed me that hope, that courage, can come from the most unexpected places." The dog, panting slightly from exertion, tail thumping, leaned closer. Eyes met in quiet understanding. Neither needed words. Their bond had been forged in fear, danger, and unwavering trust. The mountains had tested them both, but the underdog hero had triumphed, not with power or might, but with courage, intelligence, and a heart too big to fail. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over the valley, the hiker whispered one last promise. "Wherever you lead me, I'll follow. Always." The dog barked softly, a sound full of confidence and purpose. Together, they vanished into the misty trails, two souls bound by survival, loyalty, and the extraordinary heroism of a dog who refused to give up. The mountains had witnessed it all, a journey of fear, struggle, and ultimate triumph. The dog, small yet formidable, had become a legend, a reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and that, even in the most desperate moments, loyalty and courage can light the way.